Of course, the English have stuff, and so they need a place to put their stuff, and let's talk about that place. We're going to start with the slope, or in America, it will be referred to as a Bible box. And what you have is a small box, basically with a slanted top. The idea is I could use it to write, but also it's where I store all my important papers and things in the event of emergency. It's one thing to grab and get out of the house. And of course, emergencies are going to be more common in a Tudor house where everything is flammable at some level. Now, in the United States, this becomes a Bible box. The term changes, but the form does not that much, because in the United States, it tends to be the place where you put the family Bible. And you're saying they're going, but it's a Bible. Well, yes, but let me tell you from experience, from appraisal experience, even today, people hide things in Bibles. Family genealogies are frequently written in the leaf pages, the front pages of family Bibles, and sometimes going back many generations. I've also found thousands of dollars hidden in Bibles where the money is simply slipped in, maybe a $20 or $50 or $100 bill every few pages. And of course, no burglar is going to take the Bible. It's not really your first point of reference. It's not the first thing you go for. But let's take this form, this top, slope top. In this case, this is a rectangular Bible box, but stay with me here. And let's go ahead and drop some legs onto it. And what you have is a slant top desk, which we're starting to see in the English Renaissance. Now, this is a much more common form to what we see in the US. And especially you'll see these on the antique market today, although usually they're revival. And the top would come down, it locks, just like the slope that we looked at. It would be where you keep all of your very valuable papers. We have pieces of wood that later on will be geared and attached to the slant top so that you drop the slant top down, and these pieces will actually stick out, supporting that top. Early on, you would have to pull them out, and there's just a piece of wood glued at the back. So from the top, it would look something like this. Probably straighter than that. And it simply catches on the inside, so it can't pull out too far, but you would pull those and then drop the top. Inside, you would have a series of compartments, usually on 2 levels. And then you have drawers underneath, because of course it's storage, so why not use it for that purpose, for other things? We will see chests, but in the Renaissance period, we tend to see panel chests made up of, most typically, especially in Elizabethan England, 4 panels. That number 4 is really important. It's just the style of the period. There isn't a big religious significance to it or other significance. It's just an aesthetic choice. We will see the non-such chest. Now, here, this is our common chest in panel construction, so we can see where it splits. So here's one of our columns, and then this is all a panel, probably off to about here. So this is again paneled, but it is decorated with primarily architectural forms. In this case, you're actually looking almost at a church. It's got religious significance. The significance is not that they want to look at a church. The significance is the idea of the kingdom of heaven. At the time, the kingdom of heaven is something that's going to be literally built on earth, or at least that's their understanding in the 16th century. And so these architectural details follow that. It's actually a carryover from the medieval, where you see that a lot in illuminated manuscripts. The rest of this, a lot of this detail is actually done in intarsia, which we've talked about. They also have the blanket chest, which is a large storage chest, but then it has a full-length drawer underneath it. The drawer is what sets it apart. It could be decorated in any number of different forms. It could be a non-such chest and then have the drawer underneath, which makes it a blanket chest. That's also why, as things get more complicated, as we move ahead, there's often multiple terms that can be attached. And from an appraisal perspective, you can use both. So it would be a non-such blanket chest, depending on the decoration, just to give you some idea. The drawer underneath would be for less valuable things. You see the top locks, many of these chests do, but the drawer would be for things like an extra blanket or something like that where no one's really gonna try and steal it. Now, there are a couple of different cupboards that we see, and for the English, this is quite literally a place to keep cups and dishware. First, we see the Cork Cupboard, which sounds very fancy. In fact, quart means small. Basically, it's a smaller cupboard. And what we have is multiple doors and drawers, generally to keep things like dishware, flatware, etc. After all, there's no good place to put that. Much like the French and the Italians, we have a large shelf underneath where you can put fancy vases and other things to show off what you have. Or in many houses, you would stand up a couple of your plates to show off your fanciest dishware, whatever it is that you have. Now, in a working class home, you probably have one set of dishware. It's probably pewter. It might be stoneware. As you move up, you start to get into a little bit of porcelain, although we're a little early for that. You get into different forms of ironstone and different materials being used. And often they would have multiple sets at this point. So you would have 2 or 3 in a well-appointed upper middle class home. The parlor cupboard is actually bigger, and by the Jacobean, it's actually changing a little bit. So we have the top section, which is set back. We've seen that quite a bit. We've got a large shelf at the top, again, for display. The inside here is a simple cupboard at the top, but these doors, when you open them, they're going to start to be drawers in there. And you see this in some buffets and such today. Those drawers are hidden by the doors. They feel that the doors are more interesting to look at. They clean up the lines, as it were. So those drawers would typically contain whatever it is you need in that space. And for them, because there is no formal dining room, you might have one of these in the main room, whatever that room happens to be. Maybe you have 2 with different purposes, one for dishware and eating implements. One might be for comfort items, blankets, etc.